Whenever you're ready.
6 people, all right, I'll go ahead and call the Environmental Action Committee, June the 15th to order. Go around the table and just introduce ourselves really quickly. I'm Alan Long, Ward 4, City Council Member, Position 2.
Hi, I'm Kelly McGolick, Ward 3. I live in Ward 3, I'm sorry, I'm the science teacher.
Andrew Miles, I live in Ward 4, and I'm a citizen at large.
And my name is Peter Niergarten. I'm the staff liaison to the Environmental Action Committee, and I'm the city's sustainability director.
Mike Emery, I live in Ward 4, and I'm a citizen at large.
Connie Crisp, I live in Ward 1 and citizen at large.
I'm Aubrey Shepherd, I'm still at large.
Don't worry, they don't broadcast until after it's over, so no one will catch you. All right, let's go ahead and get started for today. Our first thing was a call to order and introductions. We did that. Everyone get a chance to look over the agenda. One thing I wanted to mention real quick, it's not on the agenda, but Joanne's last month on the committee was today. And so at the next meeting, we'll be electing a new vice chair. So just kind of be thinking who you would like to nominate for that. And we wanted to give everybody a little heads up that we'd be doing that next time. So
Did she have a reason to drop off, or she just didn't run again? Or?
Her term was up, and I believe Joanne had served 2 consecutive terms.
No, she hadn't. She filled in an unexpired term from another previous member. So I believe she was on the Environmental Action Committee for around a year, maybe a little longer than a year. But her term is up at the end of June of this month, and she chose not to reapply.
She didn't.
Well, maybe we'll get her back sometime.
Yeah, hopefully.
She can take 2 full terms after doing partial.
I hope she keeps coming even if she's not on the board.
Yeah.
Very valuable input.
There will be a new member to be introduced at the meeting in July. The nominating committee interviewed last week, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep, and then those nominations will be formally accepted by City Council tomorrow night.
We hope.
It's on the agenda for tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the first thing is our old business. We have a solid waste recycling, or solid waste reduction, diversion, and recycling plan update.
So last week, Kessler Consulting was back in town. That's the consultant that the city has hired to lead the master plan development. They had several meetings with stakeholders and did a presentation to City Council at a agenda session on last Tuesday evening. Also did one-on-one meetings with several of the City Council members. And Alan, I don't know if you care to share any of the information that you gained during the council presentation or the one-on-one meeting that you had with Kessler?
Well, we talked about the entire scope. So they're not looking at just particular parts of recycling, and Jeff could probably talk a little bit more about it, but they're looking at everything. All options are on the table. They're looking at doing a pilot project for a small segment of single stream, see how that would look. And they're doing some other things. Jeff, you know all the details and ins and outs of their plan better than all of us probably.
Well, as you said, that scope, this will be, when it's all said and done, it will be a year-long process working with them. But Peter and his group was working with us with recycling and trash collection and with Kessler. So I guess where we are now is looking at these pilot projects, one being a food waste pilot and the other being recycling, recycling. Again, these are pilot projects. To gather our own data to see for ourselves whether what we have been, what data and what consultation has told us and has shown us, what we derive from that in that process. So that's next for us. Now the challenge of that is the logistics and carrying that out operationally and integrating that into our current operations, which caused a little bit of, at division level, caused a little bit of concern at first, but confidence is growing, and we know that we believe that we can do it. We can integrate it into our system, and it will be within the rate structure and our existing budget, these two pilot projects. So, again, that's what's next. We want to see what that shows us.
What's the sample size?
For
Either one. I mean,
Well-
how many families, how many households?
would be about 1,900 to 1,000 on the residential side. And then on the food waste processing, we're gonna be looking at potentially some commercial sources, whether that might be, I'll speak for the university, we've been talking, Peter met with members of the
Yes,
U of A.
met with the
So we're gonna-
university, potentially grocery stores, a couple of
Maybe
restaurants. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I think the food waste compost pilot will probably be, 10 to 15 generators, and
Mhm.
if it works well, we'll grow that, but that one will start relatively small, I think.
Sheree?
I did also want to share with the group that we created a webpage for the project on the city's website. And so on that website, we have information from the waste audit. Here's a graph that we shared last month. Got links to the public meeting that was done at Woodland Junior High School. Got survey results from the 496 survey responses that we received. Technical memorandums that have been issued by Kessler Consultants so far on the project, and then also a link to the update that City Council received this past Tuesday at the agenda session. So all that's available on the city's website. Feel free to invite you to view any of those materials.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I know there's some talk about you're gonna try single stream, is that what you said, just to see how it works? And, I happened to see Brian Hugh today, and I asked a little bit about that, because I know there's some issues on whether or not to do single stream. And he said that City Council had decided on this 80% diversion rate, is that correct? I didn't realize
Well,
that.
what happened
An
at the-
adopted resolution.
Yeah, what happened at the city council, and
Uh-huh.
I wasn't sure where that number came from exactly, but I went back and looked, because it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah.
I went back and looked, and that was one of Matthew Petty's suggestions, to kind of throw it up there as this is a huge number, we're probably not going to hit it, but, if we're going to throw out a number and pay someone to research it, we should have them research the highest number possible that we think we can hit. So I wouldn't expect to see an 80%.
No,
Yeah.
but would that make a difference in whether you would go single stream or not? Because of the 80%, would that make any difference in what the decision that's made?
In talking with Kessler, in my conversation with them at least, I told them that I was less concerned about the quantity of recyclables and more about the quality.
Okay.
Because I don't want us to just be a city that's pushing our waste off on another city, personally. And they said that they had heard that from other council members as well. Of course, I haven't spoken with other council members, but like Jeff mentioned, the scope is so broad that their recommendations will determine the discussion in which we make that decision, so
Well,
I
you
really
make that
don't.
decision. And another question on that is, if we went to single stream, would we have to do that as I think you may have mentioned this before, as a project throughout northwest Arkansas with a partnership with other cities?
Well, that's part of the discussion on a broader scale on a regional basis, or from a regional standpoint. If, in order to have a viable option for single stream, you've got to have a large enough facility.
Right.
So.
And we couldn't do that by ourselves.
Not for a regional scale now.
Yeah.
Again, there are a lot of things on the table, and we've got all these, potentially, these regional players or participants, potential participants, we've been talking to, and they're amenable to what we've discussed at this point, but we're really in the very early stages of that, so.
So those are all possibilities.
Those are all possibilities. The only thing, as Alan mentioned, we didn't want to take anything off the table, except we said the whole waste energy thing was not even something that was the only thing that wasn't on the table. If we have
witchcraft or voodoo or whatever we can do to reduce waste, let's do
I
that.
have
But-
no, I'm gonna get it out there, I have no witchcraft.
No, I don't have any magic. There's no magic to it.
I thought the last time that we had heard you all speaking, that you said you really were hesitant on this single waste stream proposal, that you thought that they would come back with this. What's like a plan B?
There was no real hesitancy on our part, at least visually.
So single stream is not mixed waste processing. I'm not sure if you're confusing those two.
I guess I am,
Dirty-
tell me.
So,
dirty burn.
in a mixed waste processing scenario, all of your trash and recyclables go in the same
Oh,
container.
you're saying just all recyclables
So,
go in
single
one?
stream.
You'd have
Yeah.
two trash cans.
Right.
You put
Yeah,
one's
but trash-
recyclables, one's trash.
And you just mix it all together?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I got it.
So your plastics, metals, cardboards, but it raises your contamination
I
rate.
got it,
Usually.
I got it. Okay, yeah, I was
So-
thinking the other
So
way.
the idea with,
All the trash.
right, so the idea with
That's
the
the
pilot,
Alabama.
so everybody understands, the idea with the
Yeah.
pilot is, pilot to approximately 1,000 households, with a cart, one cart that is similar to the trash cart that you have now, but it is for recyclables only, and they would all go into that same container. And it will give us the ability to measure a couple things that are important and are things that we've heard a lot of community concern about, and that is, what does a switch to single stream really do in terms of increasing participation? Like, will our participation really go up? Will the amount of material that is collected, will that go up as well? Because that helps us get towards that greater diversion goal that you're mentioning. But then as a result of greater collection of material, what is the resultant contamination rate? So how much contamination on the back end, how much of that material is actually not recyclable and comes out of the backside of this sorting facility and does have to go to the landfill because it's not actually recyclable. So we want to understand all of that and know what those numbers look like. And that's the purpose in doing the pilot, so that we can really use local data in making our recommendation and ultimately the council making the decision on how to move forward when there comes time to formally adopt this plan.
I apologize for coming in late, so I hope I didn't not bring up something that's already been covered. When you do the pilot, will it be the recyclables the city's taking now, or will it be any more items?
We know for sure it'll at least be the materials that the city's taking now. There is a possibility that it could open up to a few other common recyclables, potentially 3 through 7 plastics.
Just for the pilot, just to see?
Yeah, but that's not set in stone at this point. We're pretty in early stages of designing, but that level of detail is part of the pilot.
So, to go in a little deeper on that, there's a company that I know we've looked at, and they work with domestic 3 through 7s. It's called Repoly. They're based out of St. Louis and developed by QRS, a recycling company. Brian Pugh actually went to tour that facility. They want the expanded polystyrene, the black plastic, and they use optical sorters with that, and they don't want any film. They don't want the 7s because of too many different resin types. But the problem with that, even if we have a contract, is we need 2 markets for any recycling stream we go to. I don't know if that applies to a pilot necessarily, but there's just not a lot of places in the country that take those materials. Most of them get shipped to China, or used to. Now there's a green fence, they say, around China, even though some's still going there, and a lot's going to India now. And so just need to find a second market for that material.
Another company like, they're actually, I think they were handling their own MRFs at one point, and now they've gone exclusively, this particular location in St. Louis, that's all they do. They run 24/7.
I think there's probably others out there. Since the green fence, there's a lot of other companies that have stepped up their game.
There are.
Doesn't mean there's any value in it necessarily, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's all economics. You just have to see what's feasible for the city and if it pays off. I mean, and what carbon footprint's there based on recycling and...
Can I step back?
Yeah.
I should have said that the only other thing that was not on the table was mixed waste process.
Right.
That was never.
The Fayetteville's tried that before. What was it, the blue bags in the 90s?
Oh,
Yeah, those, I mean, I don't think that was really mixed waste processing, because that was,
Well, it's single stream. I
it
guess.
was basically all of your recyclables, commingled in a bag,
Yeah.
if you will, instead of in a bin right now is what we use.
Yeah.
So, and another part of the discussion that we had is, you know, if we did go single stream, which, you know, the regional facility could cost over $20 million, and, you know, how do you get waste accountability when you put all these cities together, and, also, you know, if you give people just another trash can size recycling container, are they just going to be throwing a lot of trash in with it too? Or are they just going to be encouraged to keep buying more things that need to be recycled? And not encouraging people to reduce and reuse, which is one of the goals. But those are all debates that are going on across the country. So we just have to figure out what's right for Fayetteville.
And we've got 10 years to reach that goal if we were to actually reach it.
Yeah, I have a feeling that goal will change a little bit after we
Okay,
get
I'm
there.
going to ask the question again
Yeah.
with the right information. So what was like another suggestion besides the single stream?
So if you look at the graph here, Kelly, this is the result of the waste sort that was performed by Kessler Consultants back in January of the actual trash stream. And so they identified these pieces of blue pie here. So 19% of the material that's currently generated could be recycled under the city's current program, but is headed to the landfill because it's just not collected.
Mm-hmm.
And so the single stream pilot is trying to get at, you know, how can we do a better job of capturing this 19% here. Over here on the other side of the graph, we've got this 19% of material that is predominantly food waste and a little bit of low-grade paper. But all of this material could be composted, and as we mentioned, we're piloting a commercial food waste composting program to get at, you know, how can we do a better job of capturing this 19% of pie here. So those are the two early recommendations that we've seen from Kessler, that these two 19% chunks of pie are fairly low-hanging fruit, and we ought to pilot some efforts
Got
at
it.
getting at those pieces of the pie.
And so we're also looking at the dual stream, different dual stream models. I'm not sure where they've gone there, and ways to improve the current curbside sort. So, like they said, it's just all on the table.
Mm-hmm.
That's which I pointed out to them at agenda session. That's what we're paying them for. So I want to see a really good analysis on every one. And you know, I think before we implement any program, we need to do things like they've done in Canada. British Columbia's done it, and other places. We need to have a resolution in Fayetteville where we set a standard for what percentage of our commodities that go into the recycling bins are actually recycled. So that needs to be part of the scope of their study so that we know how much is being recycled. And we need visibility and third-party audits of not just the MRFs where processing's going to, but also the secondary processors that are using it to see, because a lot of times those secondary processors don't feed the information back to the cities or the municipalities where the recycled commodities come from. They send that to the MRFs, but the MRFs don't share that. So we need to know what's not used on the final end, and that's one of my major goals in this process. But they're also doing, besides this single stream pilot, the food waste pilot, they're doing a reduction in the diversion analysis, identifying different partners, talking about new policies we need to develop. I mentioned a little bit about that, and all in the master plan that they're developing for us. So it was a good discussion Tuesday, I feel like.
Well, when Kessler does their big report, like, I think I'm expecting this, but I'm not sure if it's correct. Like, they'll do an analysis of what it would cost to take our existing system and grow it versus the single stream, right? I mean, that's part of it. So, like, we could do the source separated, but it would take this much bigger facility or this many more trucks or whatever. So that'll be part of the analysis to weigh it against single stream, right? Okay.
And again, this being a plan, a master plan, and
Right.
not a report to be shelved and gathered.
Right,
but
right.
An active live, and it is now. It is an active live process, and in the end,
a plan that they'll submit to us, which, based on what we've seen to this point in working with them, working with Kessler, this is what they do, this is all they do. And, it's been a very, very good, positive experience working with them, very consummate professionals, so.
I was just thinking that'd be, good context. They'll show us, hey, we could keep doing like we're doing and grow that, but it'll cost this much, or we go single stream, it'll cost this much, and then see how it comes out.
Analysis.
Yeah.
That's one thing we talked about, and I had a one-on-one meeting with them, with Jeff was there part of the time, is the associated costs. Without the region involved, there's no way Fayetteville's building any type of single-stream facility. We can't afford a $20 million facility. That's just not in the books for Fayetteville right now, but quality was a major thing that I pushed to them, because they asked me, if you were looking at this as building a house, would you want a skyscraper or a good two-story house that works very efficiently, is energy efficient? And I said, I'd rather have the two-story house if that's what we're looking for. That does a very good job at what it does, instead of a skyscraper that loses a lot of energy, I guess. That kind of comparison.
Well, I know Fayetteville's the enterprise funded, right, so it has to, currently the solid waste department has to pay its way as it goes, kind of.
That's correct.
So, like, we talk about how, Fayetteville can't build a $20 million single stream MRF, or maybe it's not 20 million, maybe it's 12 million, or maybe it's whatever, But whatever it is, could Fayetteville build it and then charge the rest of the region to use it, just like a private MRF would, like a Waste Management or a GP or somebody would do?
Yeah, I think all options are really on the table right now. We'll be looking to Kessler to help us, kind of understand what the financial implications are for that model, maybe versus a collectively owned model, or there's other models as well.
Conceivably, in my mind, could do that. Now, I don't know if we're prohibited, but from taking out loans and then, setting up a business plan, operating it like a business, but it still be nonprofit.
And they're also evaluating the risks associated with that, because the enterprise fund, it is its own fund, but ultimately the City of Fayetteville General Fund has to support shortfalls in our enterprise funds, so risks that go into everything.
Yeah, the financial elements of it, but, there's been discussion, I almost hate to use the term, but that, because ultimately, to achieve anything resembling that goal, again, that is a very that's a big number,
Very
right, like
lofty.
that, with, setting that basketball rim at 12 feet, which, there's still people out there that can jump at 12 feet.
Not me.
But, I can't jump that far off the ground. But, so, in discussions, we've discussed everything, and the proposals and the smaller MRFs, mini MRFs, but for us, regionally, it makes more sense on a larger, on a whole, as a whole, if we can get that cooperative effort regionally, we can have the monster, that's not a derogatory term, and have enough to feed.
Right.
So.
And hopefully, if we ever did go that route, we wouldn't be creating a monster.
I should be careful using the term monster.
But it really is that you have to feed them to keep them running.
Yes,
and
but that's
raising
true,
money.
you do have to feed
So we don't want a monster, we just want a small animal, if that's what.
I'd like to make another
Yeah.
comment in this. This seems to go along with it today. We did a litter index with Brian Hugh and several other people from the office.
Thank you for helping with that, Connie.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Have you done that yet?
I have not, but
Oh, well,
one of my
you
staff
should.
went out, was
Yeah.
with you, Leif Olson.
But,
Thank
yeah,
you for-
Leif was there,
Thank you
yes.
for taking time to do that, it's important
Yeah,
work.
well, no, and the second time I've done it, and what's kind of nice about it is you go to 5 different parts of Fayetteville and go through a certain route and you look for litter. And I did it the first time when we first became part of Keep America Beautiful, which is, we're Keep Fayetteville Beautiful. But anyway, and my first impression was how clean Fayetteville was, but, there's a little trash in there. Well, now after this is the 4th year, and even the places where I didn't think it was very clean, it kind of cleaned up too. Or maybe it just was a great day for no trash, because it was pretty amazing. Seems like every year it gets better. But one of the comments that was made was that there are certain areas where people recycle quite well, know where to put everything, and then there's areas where they don't do a particularly good job, and there's areas where it's kind of a nightmare. So part of this is an education piece too, that we need to always be thinking of putting into whatever we decide on, because it's only as good as the people who recycle. So that was just something that, but Fayetteville certainly is an awfully clean city.
It is.
I'll let you guys know that.
Thank you for your work with that.
Oh, you're
Yes.
welcome. You're welcome.
I
It
know
was,
you're all in that van.
yeah, all,
Till 2 o'clock.
we were, it was almost, well, Brian got us at about 3:20. The first time it was after 4, and I was ready, I was a little stir crazy. He's getting better at it. Yeah, it's a long ride. So over 100 miles we go.
I'm glad you mentioned education. One thing I brought up at agenda session, and I got some nods from the city council members around the table, is that I think we need a full-time staff member. There's a thunder. I think we need a
Close.
I think we need a full-time staff member for education in the city of Fayetteville, and I'm going to push for that this year. And I think Jeff's division would be happy to have a full-time position for that.
Sure.
So. And I know we could definitely use it, because education's so important, and while we split a staff member right now with the Boston Mountain Solid Waste District, they don't have time to really devote,
I thought we
40
had
to
a
50
full
hours a
time.
week
No,
on
share 'em.
Fayetteville.
Shared.
It's shared.
Are you talking about Liz Hill's position?
Liz is no longer.
I know
in the
she's not, but
position.
I don't know who the new. Justin, yeah. Okay.
So,
I think that'd be an awesome, statement the city could make by committing, to a full-time person. It'd be awesome.
So that would, after we get some more recommendations from Kessler and see what they think, that'd be a great thing to have in the city of Fayetteville, is to hire someone that actually is very knowledgeable in the industry, that actually works for us and can help push our goals forward responsibly. So I don't have anything else on that, but anybody else have questions or comments?
Let me say, my house, there'll probably be 2, maybe 3. Some weeks, there'll be 4 or 5 recycling boxes. Now, and we got a small can, so that's not normal in our city. But I think most houses I see have only 1, and some still don't have any. But in those boxes, it's already single stream in effect. And we don't know how much was polluted. I mean, was there stuff that was nasty in the boxes?
In the recycling
Or bins?
boxes? Well, some people just use it for an extra trash can, according to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't accept it. a lot of
Yeah.
times.
But I would say, and maybe it's just my optimism, that the majority don't. But there's a way it seemed like that you guys like for it to be done, and all the recyclables, the bottles and cans in one, and then your paper in the other.
Well, there are some areas that are just modeled, because they
Right.
emulate, they'll copy what they see.
Exactly.
Somebody that does it in perfect, they order everything and array everything. But your earlier point about the disparities around the city and Alan's point about education and inspiring people to care.
Exactly.
Inspiring people just simply to care enough.
And to take the responsibility, which someone said before, of that's their responsibility.
I'm pretty sure I couldn't pay my neighbors to recycle. I mean, if I offered every neighbor $5 a week to put out a recycling bin, they wouldn't do it, just out of pure laziness.
Try 50.
And it makes your solid waste or your trash bill lower.
Yeah.
You can get a smaller bin if you recycle.
Right.
Like, I've got neighbors, just a couple, and they've got the biggest bin,
So not yet.
and they don't use it, and it's like you could save like $150, $200 a year.
That's your mission, you gotta work on
There
it.
it
I do know,
It's
every
a
week, like,
resolution.
tomorrow's my recycling day, so tonight, I know when people go out, so I try to go out when I know people, my bad ones go out, and I kinda, not shame them in the sense of like talk to them, but like, I'll bring out both my recycling bins and my small trash can that
And stare at
some
them?
weeks doesn't even have a bag in it. Yeah, and just be like, hey, what's up? And then you just walk back inside, and it's, eventually it'll work. If I get 1 a year, that's like my goal.
Right. And we can have 2 recycle bins, they don't
Yeah.
cost anything.
No,
I mean,
everyone-
that's what's the beauty of
And
it.
it's so easy to separate cardboard from
Right.
plastics, and to even sanitize them, and just have them dry. It's pretty simple.
I'm very particular about my recycling.
I bet
I
you
am,
are.
and, but then, you know, when it gets full, that's when you might start seeing some, aluminum cans or milk jugs or whatever on top of the other stuff, because
Yeah, I mean,
gotta put it somewhere. But,
I'm sure you're one of the good ones.
well, sometimes, I do my best, but, you know, I think most of Fayetteville does.
On the, getting more to recycle area, at the post office the other day, I frequently take stuff out of the trash and stuff it in their recycling boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I go there every day to pick up mail. And I was doing that, and here came the guy, first time I'd ever seen him out there, who takes it out of those bins with a slot in them, and he was sorting them into a container, and I said, well, who gets this? Does the city get this? And he said, no, we have a contract with somebody in Springfield. Now, he may not have known, and I didn't ask him, whether the post office pays them to pick it up, or it's like a federal thing, or they're getting money at the post office. But there's a lot of recycling between those 2 post offices. And anyway, if you get more people to use them, but their bins aren't big enough. They fill up sometimes several times a week, and they don't get dumped every day. But also, well, that contract's an interesting thing, but just having they should have signs up down there, which we could maybe supply. Please use the recycling things instead of putting it all in the trash. The other thing to do with that maybe is, yard waste we talked about last time, and that's something that if you read that book I was passing around, it's so important. If you've got woody vegetation, keep a brush pile on your property if you possibly can. There's nothing evil going to happen because of it, but there are all these many species of insects that actually utilize that material, and a tree that's still standing but dying has certain beetles and such working on it. One that falls and is starting to rot will have a different batch, and then when it's almost all gone, there will still be another species. Because if you read in Bringing Nature Home, there may be 7,000 species of one category of insect, as he puts it in the book, north of Mexico. In other words, United States and Canada, and I guess Alaska. But anyway, there shouldn't be that much yard waste if you say, oh, I'm taking a tree down. Well, I've still got a neighbor who burns it. He's talking about burning these huge dead trees. They grew right next to the creek, and the flooding so much frequently enough that they die there. He's got a beautiful cypress that must be 10 years old. It's doing real well there. And some willows and buttonbush. But anyhow, if you utilize it as habitat in some way and think of it that way, and this is something that we should be trying to teach to the public. And
That's the kind of stuff educators
Education.
could help,
That's good education.
chisel away at that, teach kids and have workshops and stuff like that, and just try to reach out to people. Right now, a lot of people just don't know.
yeah, or we could make them watch this committee meeting.
Is it possible, speaking of that, Fayetteville's a volunteer community of the,
Wildlife habitat,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Is it possible to, or the volunteer community of the state, I can't remember what they call it right now.
Wildlife Federation.
No,
No.
Thinking of
the,
something.
we have more volunteer hours in the city than any city in the state of Arkansas.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
don't we do that almost every year?
So,
Right there on the wall next to you,
it
Joe.
would be really nice to,
Volunteer community
Oh,
year.
community of the year,
yeah, that was it. It'd be really nice if we had some volunteers start working, you know, doing trash sorts. And, you know, because that's grassroots education. And I'd really like to see that happen. And that way, you know, you have 10 people volunteer to do it, well, they tell their friends about what they did and what they saw, and that gets out. I know my first trip down to our materials recovery facility was eye-opening for what we did in Fayetteville, to see how much trash and recycling materials were just laying there in the trash area.
Well, going across the transfer floor.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly,
trouble, I think.
yeah.
You know, last 2014, 64,000, almost 65,000 tons went across that transfer floor into open top tractor trailers into big hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Landfill. So stemming that tide, I mean, that's the thing that we see there day in, day out, and finding a way to recover. And again, looking at that chart there, there's some, I mean, that fruit is there. It's gonna we'll have to stand on our tiptoes to get that, but we can get that, those two components that are in large portions. I believe it can be done.
We just have to identify how to get to the apartments, which over 50% of Fayetteville's apartments.
Yeah.
We have, I mean, that's gonna be the really hard and key part to this. I mean, we could leave our curbside sort program alone, educate people on how to use it better, and have a stream, have a dual stream that addresses apartments, and we would get a large portion of that. That and identifying the food waste alone. I mean, the food waste program alone's a lot of low-hanging fruit that could really be picked up and boost our numbers quite a bit. So, anyway, that's where we're at right now. So, any other questions before we move on to the zoning? Okay. Trying to keep us on schedule a little bit. I don't want anybody to get this weather.
Well, that lightning bolt may have felled the tree, so I'll bring.
It may have.
You better go watch for that tree.
I hope it's not on my house. There are already 2 or 3 of our trees sort of lean on the house.
So, at the last meeting, we talked about zoning, and I guess we're going to give the committee another month to send in some ideas on things that could be looked at for different things in our zoning to help support our Enduring Green Network, ideas to come up for new types of zoning, or maybe new things to work and coincide with the LID manual. We only got a response from one person, so if y'all want to send me your ideas, then that way Peter and I can kind of put them together. We talked today and just decided that probably better to wait another month so we had more stuff to put together and make sure that any survey we put together kind of reflects what the committee thinks. So, and then we can work on putting it together and then getting it sent out to our stakeholders in the area. So. Any questions?
I have a comment about that. I wasn't sure whether we were going to talk about the area that is zoned it's going to be part of the new street that goes from, it goes to MLK from Ripple Road, I believe. Is that what
It is Ripple Road, yeah.
it is Ripple Road.
Mhm.
It's just going all the way through. Okay.
For Simmons.
And isn't that zoned agriculture and the area that's involved, like where they're going to have the corridor for making sure that there's the right amount of places for wildlife and so on? What is that zoned right now?
That's a large tract of land. There's a couple different zoning types there.
So there's a couple, but was
But
part of
there's
it agricultural?
RA.
Yeah.
It was agricultural.
Did they change that?
Predominantly, and at the last city council meeting, there was I believe it was a unanimous vote to
Right.
rezone the property to a mix of form-based zoning districts.
Okay.
I believe it's around 640 acres total.
It's 640.
Much of the area was rezoned to a housing zoning district called Neighborhood Conservation. Allows for up to 10 units per acre, I believe. The corridor along Rupel Road was rezoned predominantly to community services. And then the area furthest to the south was rezoned to urban thoroughfare, which is a more intense commercial zoning district.
Close.
And then the area along the stream threads was predominantly left as residential agricultural.
Okay, that was left as residential.
And it all, when the city, before the city had its different types of zoning classifications, that was just the typical classification that was used was RA.
That was just what.
That was how a lot of things ended up in residential agriculture.
I got you.
We see a lot of tracts of land, especially out further to the west in Fayetteville where we did large annexation. Not we, but when they annexed the land, I think that was 2006, I can't remember.
And if it's agricultural, does that mean like one house per acre?
One-
Is that kind of what they're talking
One
about?
house per 2
Yeah.
acres.
2 houses per acre.
No,
The one house per 2 acres.
2 acres?
Right.
Oh, okay. And you were saying 10 units per acre? Are you talking about 10
So the-
houses per acre? or-
Yeah, in the neighborhood conservation zoning district areas, I believe the maximum density is 10 units per acre.
Small apartment complex.
Okay, so you're talking about like, not like houses, but like, it could be an apartment complexes.
There's some row houses.
Yeah, you could
There
do
could be row
Yeah.
houses,
The
okay.
cottages.
Multifamily is, I believe maybe some smaller multifamily might be a conditional use in neighborhood conservation, but generally it's a single-family zoning district, but row houses, cottage courts
Okay.
could also be appropriate.
Okay.
I expect that when everyone heard in the paper, and I've heard a lot about it from constituents on the west side of town, regarding the Razorback Golf Course, because it was
Yeah.
in the paper
Right.
before any actual zoning plan was submitted, or rezoning plan, or anything to the city, so the information we have is limited. It went to Parks and Rec Board, and that's as far as it's gone at this point, so I suspect after an actual rezoning packet is submitted that we'll be visiting that rezoning as well.
That's
Or
going
you
to be
can buy it for
apartments?
$5 million.
Right.
Keep it as is.
I'm sorry?
That's going to be apartments, is that what?
What they've reported
Possible.
in the paper and to the Parks and Rec Board is that it would be a mix of multifamily and single-family homes,
Okay.
but,
A lot of them.
640 apartments
yeah.
would be part of it, and then the rest would be single family and other stuff.
Okay.
Be on the size of the
640
View or the Domain apartments on MLK. It's like
Yeah.
the
Big.
size, yeah.
Yeah,
So, and it's a very environmentally sensitive area.
that's what I thought, yeah. So
It's
that
adjacent
makes-
to the wetland that we've been,
Yeah.
talking about over
Talking
between
about,
Dean
right,
Solomon and,
right.
well, it's technically part of the same wetland.
Right.
So, for me personally, understanding the zoning is helpful, which I don't have, a clear picture of all the different types of zoning, and I'm trying to learn that. So, as far as what we would do as a, committee in helping that is something I'm still a little not sure about, what I could contribute to that.
Well, I guess what Peter and I are asking for more is what different considerations you would like us to look at and what your concerns are so that we can wrap those into good questions.
Okay, so
and-
concerns about
Yeah.
what could be environmentally sensitive areas or, well.
In different things to look at that we as a committee can consider, for putting into some type of ordinance or zoning criteria.
For example, we've got the Enduring Green Network
Right.
that we're supposed to be helping review,
Yes,
but we don't ever do anything about it. We just rezone them and go on with business, and I don't understand that. So why are we reviewing things in the Enduring Green Network? So that's what I'll send you.
I couldn't hear the part.
But why is one of our tasks to review projects in the Enduring Green Network, because we don't have any power, any control, or any say in it? So I think that'll be one of my concerns to throw out there, that, if we're supposed to review it, what are we supposed to do about it?
Well, and I think that
Nothing ever changes.
this is more looking at developing an option that maybe developers could use, or
Right.
preemptively looking at properties that could need to be rezoned, or when the city council does forward us a rezoning, for us actually to have an option to recommend to them, because right now we're very limited.
yeah,
Right.
We can't really recommend that they zone everything agricultural, because that's just quite frankly probably not going to happen.
Right.
But we can do our best to put some restrictions on things like that, so that's, when they referred the actual first one to us, about 2 months ago when we had that long meeting, and, that was the first formal, referral from the city council that we've ever had, so.
Well, I think
They've,
it
they've
happened
asked us to talk about things, but
in
never
past
provide a
years,
formal
but-
recommendation in the packet.
I remember when we reviewed the Rupel Road expansion, and the discussion came up that, you know, it was right through the Enduring Green Network, and that it was gonna lead to the higher density population, you know, zoning and all that kind of stuff. This was a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. And so it was just presented to us, and here it is, and here's what's coming. Thank you for your service. So it's like, you know, we didn't have any influence whatsoever, you know, the Enduring Green Network didn't seem to matter, you know. In fact, you know, and again, it is what it is. I'm not trying to be critical of the project, you know, after the fact, but, you know, there's a good argument for, you know, the higher density zoning and all this, because it, you know, it's an artery road, and it supports our transportation plan, and helps support the higher density population, and helps support the mass transit and reduce cars on the road. And so, you know, there's all these good arguments for doing it, obviously. So but yeah, it comes back to what good's Enduring Green Network? Why did we designate that in the first place, you know?
Well, we have to put these things on the record, and that's why I try to do the research, even though I'm gonna lose what I'm working on, you know. I want it to be on there, and I want it to be in the minds of people, and hope that more young people will get in power and do something about it. Try to understand what's important about the Enduring Green Network. But the part at MLK where that new highway is coming, have you been there?
I was,
Not lately.
I looked at it,
On
every day.
person, drive by, and see?
Well, I drove by.
It's between a liquor store and the little shopping thing where my wife actually works, where the Hogeye Inc. moved from Hogeye up there, as they own that building and that property. And, you know, it's just a wildlife haven back there. Streams come down behind it, and it's all wetland. It's where something's built, it's deep fill dirt. And, you know, she goes out the back door, and there are butterflies and birds and snakes and turtles and, you know, everything. They take walks in the neighborhood there. Nothing. No thought seemed to have gone into where that was gonna come out, except they didn't want it to come out, and they didn't want that Fayetteville Street to end in Farmington. So they did this to bring it over into Fayetteville at a very delicate spot.
Well, it's gonna feed right into the new sports complex and all that stuff, isn't it? I think all that's gonna flow together, so that'll be all developed on the other side of MLK.
Well,
There'll be hotels and
well,
everything.
no, I don't know. I hate to think of anything being built on that road. But, you know, Kessler Park partially is protected. And have you been out to see the clearing they've done for the ball fields? If you go in the road, and Kessler's entry's over here, and to the, or to the south is they just cleared, they just took everything off those hills out there in the back. Well, they haven't gotten it flat yet, but that was the absurdity of buying that property for ball fields and things. There's no flat place there big enough for maybe 1 or 2 kids' ball fields. Everything will be fill dirt. Everything will have vegetation all over it. And the biggest absurdity was the Great Lawn. And I said 3 or 4 years ago, when that came up on that project, to the park board, which I used to go to, not as a member, but just to comment on the way things are done. Well, it should be left in wildflowers and native grass, which is dominates a lot of that still, even though it's cow pasture. The fescue can be got rid of it in 1 year, mowing only in the winter, or burning in the winter, and then letting the native things and protect the trees. So, but the Great Lawn, well, it's going to be a lawn. Yeah, so that means they're going to plant non-native plants and maybe some flower beds, but we don't know exactly what they mean by that. But the environmental destruction of that regional park is absurd. And you may have been aware of the sale of a ballpark that was the American Legion ballpark. Any of you may have played there when you were younger. It hadn't been operating in a few years, but it was sold, 8 acres or more, wonderful, level, formerly wetland tract for $80,000 because the American Legion post had been, as somebody explained, their money had been frittered away or flitted away somehow, and they had to sell off that to keep the building intact and so forth. And some developer bought it, and you got at council, you got a chance to rezone it for apartments. You remember that one? And now, of course, those developers are not going to build on it. It's for sale. All they're doing is flipping it. They went in and got the rezoning. They earned their profit off of it by getting the rezoning modified, and now they can sell it as apartment buildings. And in this case, since it was already a ball field with good fences and with storage building, with even a little graffiti on the dugout. Anyway, it was a great place to play ball. It was easy to keep it up. And the city was short of money to build what was the 3rd or 4th ball field at Kessler. You remember that?
They actually are gonna build, is it 2 or 3? I can't remember. I tried to actually change the bond issue so that we got an extra $800 and some odd thousand so that we could get that
The last one.
final one done, but the council didn't
Well, for
go with that.
$80,000, the city could have owned this one over there, and it would bring more traffic down to that little narrow road down to South Pass. It would actually provide a ball field for kids in that neighborhood, which is out southeast, about 2 miles from here. And, for a regional park to have big tournaments, that was the reason. You don't want 1,000 players, kids out there, all the cars their parents bringing them or trying to get a bus to ride there. Kids need to play close to home. This is a tradition, and it's still a good one. You can't assume every kid's going to have a scooter with a motor, and 11 be riding out there, or whatever they'll be wanting to play in those fields. And probably 8 is where we started doing it in the neighborhood. But anyhow, there are a lot of things that are wasteful, and that was one of them. I didn't know it was for sale ahead of time, but since I attend a meeting at that facility frequently, I found out about it before y'all had a chance to vote on it and realized it was already practically a done deal. But if somebody's going to make money for getting it, just brokering that rezone.
Razorback?
No, I'm talking about over there. But in all these things, yeah, everything you're talking about, yeah, probably the Razorback golf course will go the same way. It may be.
Or it might not go anywhere at all.
Yeah. That would be nice.
Oh.
And that's my question is, what, as a committee, can we do? Okay, let's take Razorback Golf Course. I need to know what we can bring to the table to, I'm not sure I know where I fit in this, as far as that, as a committee.
Well, we can take a
right
tour,
now-
or can't we?
So right now, we don't need questions necessarily from the committee, but we need concerns, specific concerns.
Okay.
From things that you would like to know from our stakeholders, concerning what's important to them, what areas of our code can be improved, what type of, for lack of a better word, restrictions would you like to see in certain areas, and lay out those areas of protections. Yes, thank you. So that Peter and I can put together a good stakeholder survey, and then we'll bring that survey back here to the committee. We'll unpack that survey, and we'll talk through it, and then we'll send that out to our stakeholder groups and the committee, afterwards, and we'll bring that back. And then, one recommendation could be, if it's a area with environmentally sensitive water quality, the water quality is very sensitive in that area because it's close to, I'm just saying this out loud, the Illinois watershed, which we're all in, but close to one of the tributaries, that rezoning needs to go to the Water and Sewer Committee first. Different things like that. I mean, we can be creative.
Okay.
It's not necessarily creating a new zoning. It could be creating a new thing similar to what was created when they did the low-impact development ordinance. So.
I think one of the things that's important for the group to remember is that keep your role as the Environmental Action Committee in the context of like what all the other boards and committees do for the city of Fayetteville. So we already have a planning commission that is selected based on their knowledge and expertise in the planning and zoning arena, and we really don't, I don't think there's going to be a strong administration support for redundancy in that role, and what that the Environmental Action Committee members need to try to think about how you could best where can you provide that input and expertise on matters concerning the environment, which is what's in the ordinance that created the Environmental Action Committee. So as much as possible,
Somehow we can influence the Planning and Zoning Commission to take this into account, since we can't do it for them.
Well, and also, if we come up with a good recommendation, I'm an alderman, so I can take it to the council myself. No matter how anybody feels, and let the council just debate that and see if, they have some better ideas to incorporate into that. So, I mean, I plan on taking whatever we have to the council myself, so, we'll just go from there.
So like the Razorback Golf Course, if we wanted to look at that piece of land where the sensitivity is in the environment and how that might affect certain ways that it was used, which we don't even know how it's going to be used, but just that would be something we could do as a committee.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's important to think about and keep in mind there are some protections that are already afforded, as a matter of our planning and zoning and development ordinances, such as the stream side protection ordinance, such as tree preservation. But where are there still gaps in what exists, and how could this committee, help to influence filling in whatever those gaps might be? Again, with wearing the hat of matters that concern the environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look for those linkages.
Okay.
That way, hopefully, we can tie them all together, because we've got some broken wings.
Well, the gaps come at all the levels. I mean, the park board has, for a long time, leaned toward taking money in lieu of protected, environmentally sensitive land, or even places for ball fields and stuff. But all those years since South Pass was proposed and recalled, and they got it, the parkland finally, they were hoarding money in the funding sources, wherever it's stored, and I guess it's downstairs. But anyway,
it's in a bank, not downstairs. Someone breaking it.
But anyway, the park department was holding money back from building in other parts of town, or accepting more land for other small parks in town, because the money was needed to build this, and now that's being done. But there is I don't know what was the vote. You saw my note, I think, about the park board left this building. They adjourned to that Razorback Golf Course where they were going to see it, and they did not take the camera with them.
But their vote was not a vote. They
didn't vote there?
They voted to have another meeting, and they haven't had that meeting yet. Connie said she would let me know when they did have that meeting, and when they do, we'll let everyone know, because more information was needed for them to determine.
Well, the chairman, before they left this building, said and the public, just filled the whole room on both sides where you hear Peter for that night. But anyway, it was packed, and people were standing all around the tables. And a bunch of them spoke. It was like some of the other big things going in council chambers. But he told people, and Connie said, well, it's a public meeting. You can attend out there. And he said, yes, come on out if you like. We're going to reconvene out there, and we'll probably take the vote out there. So that set my antenna up. But that's one of the things that this committee, I don't think, has been guilty of ever, is failing to have our discussions in public. Over the years, even when we had this committee met at off-site places, there was a camera, and it was on government channel. And I think that's always important. That's why the city's so committed to openness, and it's really saved a lot of misery by having it.
And just so no one gets confused though, they did announce before the meeting that they would be going out to that site beforehand. They didn't violate FOI or anything like that, but
they didn't.
But it is so much more convenient to have our meetings here.
If it's not, see, we have a government channel. It's the best one in the state, and the best public access, and
We do.
the best university station, and all these things. And many times the reporter of the newspaper these days, who is still the one of record in most towns, is some reporter, and they now have a deadline that's so early that they can't go out there and then come back and write their stories. We used to have, when I was a newspaper, 1:30 in the morning was deadline. Usually it was just sports, but it could be international news or a major wreck in town or something. And they started the press after that. But now they try to do it much earlier. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Well, so I'm going to kind of try to get us wrapped up. I do have another meeting at 7 that I have to go to. But so that's the zoning survey discussion. If you can, go ahead and just send us in the next week to 2 weeks what your ideas or thoughts are, just via email. You can send them to Peter and myself. If we don't get much before the next meeting, Peter, we don't have a rezoning at the next meeting, do we, to discuss?
I'm not aware of any pending or pressing items.
If the council doesn't forward us a rezoning to discuss, we'll probably, and we don't have a lot of responses yet, we'll probably just schedule the meeting for the next month, because we want to have at least 2 items on the agenda to talk about. So let's, if we get those, we'll put together as much as we can and bring some stuff for everybody.
Well, on the one I brought up when I came in, Charlie Sloan's rezoning question, he thought he was coming to this meeting. The time I went out there, it was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago nearly. And his is, the young lady talked to us about the land across the road from Woolsey Wet Prairie. And Charlie Sloan and partners have investment in that. And so we walked a lot of it, and since they're not here, I don't have to show you the pictures, but the things that we discovered while we were out there was fawn sleeping in the tall grass.
I saw that picture.
You saw that picture? Yeah, that was where it was from. And Joe Neal made one about the same day, and somebody else did. It was just a big day for fawns hatching. And so, also, all the evidence of it being exactly the same land, same kind of land, with streams through it, and with same kind of soil. Everything that's on Woolsey that's been turned into a modified, improved wetland area. But so, my advice to him was, yes, they didn't want to go too close to the edge of their property. They wanted to build right up to it. And so this ditch was just made through here because all that water comes down off the mountain and goes through this property. It just floods across here. And so maybe we'll pipe that ditch through there that used to be where our stream ran. And I pointed out, no, it would be nice to save the vegetation here and treat it as a real stream and set yourself back 50 feet preferably away from that fence, and which is where the water flows now. And then another stream comes over here, which is Claver Creek's on the right, cuts through it. And, Owl Creek is on that side, so it comes from behind Owl Creek School and all that, and that's a big flow. And that part had, you know what the native, what grows in the desert? Cactus. What do you call it? Somebody knows the name of the prickly pear cactus. Beautiful yellow flowers. There must have been 50 or 100 of those right down along the stream bed, and several other species that I don't see very many places. Because those, for instance, there were probably 1,000 of those growing where they built the apartments on top of Rocher Hill, the View Apartments. There are none up there right now. And we do have one little nature patch that you can go see now, and I negotiated that to be set aside up there by being at the Planning Commission and having worked with the engineer, and he set aside a portion, and it's got native species on it. It needs some winter management, but it's magnificent. And but those are just little patches, but they're certifiable as part of our community habitat effort. Okay, you're ready.
Yep.
Shut up.
No.
I know you have to go,
Yeah.
what about invasive species? Are we going to ever do anything else about that, or is that just already been taken care of with the city council, or?
No.
There's a lot talked about that today, since we saw a lot of invasive species everywhere.
We haven't gotten a recommendation yet. It's gonna be a while, I believe.
Yeah, so City Council passed a resolution requesting a stakeholder group take a look at invasive species and bring back some
So
recommendations.
that's what we're
And
waiting.
so we're in the middle of that stakeholder process. Andrew has agreed to be a representative on the stakeholder group and represent the Environmental Action Committee. We're looking at doing our second stakeholder meeting, probably the last week of this month or the 1st of July. Yeah.
Good.
Do we have any announcements of any events coming up before we adjourn?
There's a lead tour tomorrow at the Core Architecture building. It's actually Core Architecture and Core Brewery, their tap room. So they're doing a tour at 5 o'clock through the USGBC Arkansas chapter. It's $15 for non-members, 10 for members at 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Where's
And where is it?
That's up there in Rogers, like at Pinnacle.
Oh.
Up there at Pinnacle, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
Something interesting in the area.
that is,
Mhm.
and the talking about native and non-native species both, which that book's primarily about. You said something about it last time. I'll be happy today. I went out at 10 a.m. and at noon I headed back, went to Senior Center for lunch. Made more than 600 pictures. 3 new things on a disc, 200 batches. And a lot of new things were in bloom that weren't in bloom. A week or two ago, it seemed like none of these usual flowers will get up because there's so many berry vines and other things. Berry vines aren't bad. There's just too many, and it kind of suppresses things. But too many non-native things trying to grow. And today, you see so many new ones that I was thrilled to be out there. And I'd love to show it to more people and take a guidebook. And if you don't know some plants, I don't know, we'll put it in the book.
I got a real quick invasive story. I wasn't there, so I don't want to take any credit for it, but behind Vandergriff and the McNair, they're going to put a bike trail in on school property, and I don't know if we talked about that here or not, but they had an Eagle Scout project, and they had like 75 volunteers, and they pulled primarily honeysuckle out, cut and hacked and dug, and So I wasn't there for that, for the work, but I drove by afterwards to see, and they had a mound of vines that they pulled out of, you know, the trail and the lines of sight and stuff. I don't know, you know, probably filled, you know, 10 open top roll-offs or something. It was a mound, you know, 15 feet tall and 15 feet wide and 120 feet long in one spot, and then there's a couple other piles. And that was just mostly honeysuckle that they pull out of the woods there. So it's amazing how thick it gets.
I've been fighting it for 10 years. More than that, really. Any other announcements before we adjourn? Okay, thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Alan.